Okay, we got to make this quick. I got 2 gallons of nog in the bath.
It's nog time. The nog season is upon us again.
Look, I don't know what day it is today for people who are listening, but for me, it's December 18th, 2024, and the nog time is upon us.
That's right. Some might say the nog time never ends, but you know.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, last year I found a lost jar of nog in the back of the fridge behind all the beer and all the other stuff in June.
What? How did we not talk about this?
Oh, look, it was a little bit embarrassing. I didn't want to get into it, but
I can see why you wouldn't want to bring that up. I'm sorry. Just to clarify again, reiterate, 6 months roughly we're talking about?
June-ish. It was summertime.
Okay.
It was not a nog season.
That's a long time for a milk product to hang out in the fridge.
So I looked at it and I was like, oh, Gina, we made a mistake. And she was like, yeah, we did. And then my initial thought was just, I should just put it back in there and then not think about it anymore.
Yeah,
which was not the right
next year.
Not the right instinct. Yeah. My second thought was, oh, it's trash day. I'm just going to put this directly in the trash and not open it, which is what I did.
Okay.
So I assume that at some point in the future, archaeologists will be digging in the San Francisco municipal landfill and they will find an intact jar of nog and then
fossilized.
Yeah. Like people will extract ingredients from it and try to discern what it was. And they'll be like, it seems to be some sort of curdled milk product. This must be what the people of the early 21st century really enjoyed was.
Yes. Anthropologists will draw sweeping conclusions about the entirety of our culture based on this one artifact. The thing I was going to ask is, okay, I fully support your all or nothing, throw it in the trash, just forget about it and move on with your life strategy.
Yeah.
First of all, it was in glass, right? I assume
it was in a mason jar. I do quart mason jars of nog generally.
There's nothing about glass that would render that jar unusable though, right? Or is it like somehow porous enough that like a bad enough product could soil it forever?
Look, the jar was totally redeemable, but the price of a mason jar is such that I did not care to the mental and psychic trauma of disposing of 6-month-old milk products, egg products, just to be clear.
Oh yeah, I get it. Don't get me wrong.
Like I shook it a little bit to see what the consistency was like in there. And it was like, it wasn't quite soft cheese yet, but it was chunkier than you want something that your nostrils are exposed to.
Is there both yolk and white in there or
all yolk? So I used to separate it. So look, I've learned a lot making nog over the years. The first couple of years I did like 3 or 4 gallons, I think. And we would just buy pallets of eggs from the restaurant supply place. And then I think somebody actually on the podcast, somebody who listens to the podcast was like, hey, you can buy commercially pasteurized and homogenized egg yolks.
Oh, that's right.
In cartons. Yeah. And I was like, wait, what? Because the hardest part of the nog previous to that was what do you do with 140 eggs worth of whites?
Well, it's a lot of omelets. I bet I have said that's a lot of omelets on another podcast.
That is precisely what you said. And what I will tell you is there's no way that 3 people will eat that many egg white omelets before they are horrific.
Okay, so that is precisely what you said. Now that I think about it, but so did we talk about like before you got that? Were you were you doing the pasteurization yourself?
Well, I do the pasteurization again anyway.
Oh,
so. So that's why the nog's in the bath now. It does 90 minutes ish in 162 Fahrenheit bath. And
that's not hot enough to like cook the egg at all.
It does not cook the egg, but it does pasteurize kills 99. Lower temperature than that will kill 99.999% of the things.
Okay, but it's that the problem is that 0.0001 hung out in that jar for another 6 months.
Well, I think the problem is that there's pasteurization, there's ultra pasteurization. I don't think we're ultra pasteurizing here. I think we would have to go longer to get the 5th one, right? But yeah, it wasn't good. So I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to expose my nostrils to that kind of food crime. And I sacrificed one mason jar to the future.
Understandable. My last question, did you ever consider just dumping enough booze in there that it wouldn't matter?
Well, so the weird thing is, I think if I had boozed the nog, it would have probably been okay.
Wow. You mean up front?
Yeah. So because a lot of people do this like 5-6 weeks in advance and put booze in and then let it age with the booze and the pasteurization. And that's a different thing. But we have enough people that don't drink or like there's a big split between like, do you put bourbon in? Do you put rum in? Do you put spiced rum in? Do you put dark rum? Do you put a rye? Do you put something else that I haven't even thought of? So we just don't do like and also we have enough friends who don't drink that I don't want to accidentally give somebody the booze nog when they're a recovering alcoholic or something, because that would be uncool.
Yeah, that's entirely sensible.
So we just don't do the booze.
Yes. And then you end up with a time bomb in your fridge.
Look, it hadn't puffed up the top dome of the mason jar yet. You know, the pop down that hadn't popped up. So I figured probably okay.
Well, hey, there's always next year.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Hello. Hi.
Brad, I'm coming off hot. We did the best ofs for the full the nerdies yesterday for the full nerd.
Oh, has that run that was public live?
We do it live every week.
Not something you're keeping under wraps.
No, you can go over to the Full Nerd channel on YouTube or go to wherever fine podcasts are found and find out. I brought I feel like I maybe brought too much energy to that though. I feel like I was too I didn't have the pushback I was expecting. I was expecting like an old giant bomb war room level of pushback. Mm-hmm. And I think people were like, I can't argue with that after I said stuff. And I was like, this is bad. I've gone too far.
Maybe your arguments were just that good.
Maybe. I don't know.
You could not be. They were just that convincing.
It was fun. It was a good year for tech. It's a fun conversation with Adam and Brad and Elena. And
yeah. Can I ask, like, can you give me like one or two things that were highlighted? I'm just curious what passed muster.
Yeah. So they did, I think we did 5 categories. We did best CPU, best GPU, best accessory, which is like kind of anything you can plug into a PC, software or hardware.
Okay.
We started out with best innovation, but then we realized we'd rather do best trend. So we changed it to best trend on the fly.
Sure.
And did worst trend.
Okay.
To kind of counterpoint.
Actually, I'm going to stop you with only 5 categories. I think people should just go listen for themselves.
I mean, they can, but
I don't want to give anything away here.
What I will say is the conversation about CPU, I brought a little bit of wild card energy in there, and we were talking about CPU, and I was, their motto over there. They have 2 mottos at PC World. One is bigger bar better, and then the other one is always be testing. Apparently, they've always said always be testing over there since the very beginning.
That was weird.
It seemed familiar to me, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They since bigger bar is better, I just was like, hey man, what about the 14900K? They re-released it this year. They fixed the performance problems.
That's really
still faster than everything out there.
As a current user of a 14900K, I find this very funny.
It's not catching on fire anymore if you have the right updates installed. Everything's cool.
I think mine's fine. I think it's been pretty stable.
Yeah.
Maybe it is the best.
We had a good conversation.
As energy consumption bars go, is certainly the biggest bar.
Yeah. Yeah. They have so many biggest bars over there. They can't even keep track of them all.
They have the biggest bar in every category.
Yeah. Most CPUs torched, most power consumed at full load, most cores,
most CEOs excised. I mean, that's not really the reason he got tossed out. But anyway.
Yeah, so it was a good conversation. It's worthless. If you're looking for podcasts to fill your holiday voids,
yes, I will definitely pull that up.
Hit a download.
That sounds right up my alley.
But we're here today to do something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe in superlatives here at the Tech Pod.
No.
We just think that every question submitted is the best question we've ever received.
That's right. Until the next one.
Yeah, and then we turn them into A's. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, if you start with our first question and answer episode like 2-3 years ago, each question is better than the one that came before it. So that means these questions now are orders of magnitude better than the ones that we had on those first few episodes.
I have to tell you something.
What's up, Brad?
When you say our first question and answer episode 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was over 5 years ago.
We've been doing this for 5. Oh, we have been doing this for 5 years.
Dude, we blew past the 5-year mark like 3 months ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
anyway.
Yeah, look, 2020 to 2022 is basically a 1 3-week chunk in my brain.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Anyway, we're turning questions into answers this week.
Yes. I don't know if I should bring this up, but I feel like I have to so we don't step in it. We are recording this out of order.
So if we talk about something this week that we didn't mention last week and there's any weirdness, it's just because we've never done this before and we're bad at it.
Yes. We are for reasons we are recording. Oh God, I am losing track. 267. We're doing 266 right now.
This is this is 267. We have to do 266 on Friday.
Okay. Currently the plan is we will do a ranking of connectors and cables and ports.
I'm sure that episode was fantastic.
Yes,
that's what I know.
Best thing we've ever recorded or will record anyway.
Look, hey Brad, why aren't we doing a ranking of startup chimes and startup noises for Windows, startup noises for consoles and devices and Windows this week?
But because Remap very fairly beat us to that banger of an idea, and I think you're saying that because you suggested we do that for a holiday episode, and I was like, I thought you knew that they did it. When
I
you
did
said
not.
That. I was like, why is surely he knows that Remap just did this.
No, I think they did it on their like their 1 year anniversary stream, right?
It was a charity stream. I cannot remember what charity it was for, but it was it
was a Palestinian charity stream.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, it was a very long stream. I think they spent like 4 hours on that ranking or something.
Well, they were there. They met in New York or something for a weekend, I think, and basically streamed all weekend. Which was I watched a bunch of that. I missed that one entirely, which I maybe I knew it happened, but it's lost to time now. I'm lost to my memory. But so yeah, we're ranking connectors on a variety of categories and criteria for last week's episode, which you already heard. Know that we did that, and it was awesome.
Yep.
But there aren't any emails about that in this episode.
If there's anything temporally incorrect about this episode, though, you know why.
Yeah. So if you have a question, you can send it to techpod@content.town. Again, the email address is techpod.content.town. Or if you are a patron, you can go into the Discord, which you can get access by going to patreon.com/techpod. And you can join the question seeking answers channel and post your question there. It'll disappear into the void a few seconds after you post it, but we'll see it. It'll be there. We'll know it's there. And when we look deep into our hearts and pick the best questions and mourn the ones that we had to skip because we either didn't have a good answer or maybe they were sometimes they're a little long, Brad. Yeah,
it's true.
Do you want to hit the first question? You got a one off the top for us?
Yeah. Why don't I peel this one off of the email stack?
Okay.
From Nate in Fort Collins. Having a job again and joining meetings and doing calls has led me to a very frustrating conundrum. I, like many, use Bluetooth headphones at work. I absolutely hate it when an application swaps to the headset device to handle calls because the earphone audio quality drops and makes everything sound like poop. Why in the year of our corporate overlords 2024 can't Bluetooth maintain decent audio quality when using the microphone? I find myself setting my laptop's microphone as the input device so I can get acceptable audio quality otherwise. Hope you both have a great holiday.
So Windows is traditionally really bad at this. If you're using Windows, Mac is surprisingly good at this. The Macintosh, in my experience, especially if you're using Apple headphones, just works as you would expect.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Because the thing that you're having is there's two profiles. There's the headset profile and then there's the H2DP profile. And the H2DP profile is a higher bit rate, higher bit depth on the audio samples. It sounds like music versus like brainy ass GSM phone calls from 2005. If you want to force it and your hardware supports it, then you can go to devices and printers in your device and go to properties. And then there's a services tab if the driver is set up right for it. And on that services tab, you can disable the hands-free telephony and headset audio gateway. And you should be able to use, and then it should default back to advanced audio, which will give you the thing that you want.
Oh, but does the headset has to support that codec? Is that what we're talking about here?
The answer to that is it's complicated. It seems like it's the Bluetooth adapter has to support that preferences sheet.
Okay.
Because I looked at two different machines before we did this. My desktop machine has the preferences sheet, and my laptop does not. And they use different Bluetooth controllers. So and to connect to the same device. So
Bluetooth audio codecs are a nightmare. Like most things about Bluetooth. I don't know how much time you spent looking into that stuff, but that's probably one reason we have never gotten around to our Bluetooth triptych.
I have a big giant notes dock that's like a third of the way done for the Bluetooth triptych. But
there are a lot of just for audio. There are a lot of codecs, a lot of Bluetooth codecs, and like which one does your headset support? Which one does your laptop or adapter support? You know, like which one is it falling back to?
It's
There's a lot going on there.
It looks for the least common denominator, and often the least common denominator is headset audio, which is the bad one that you don't want.
That makes sense. When you mentioned earlier that it's like Mac OS just tends to kind of just work with the stuff. Like I think you were talking mostly about Apple hardware. So I started thinking about like I have used a number of other like kind of lesser Bluetooth audio devices with Mac OS. And like even in those cases, I think generally the quality is good. The connectivity is good. Like it is pretty reliable at pairing and staying paired and everything. Like I think maybe Mac OS just has a better Bluetooth stack in general.
I think that's a fair assessment.
It definitely has like a better audio stack in general. I can say that for sure. So
I think they have, I think there's a difference in, my guess is that Microsoft errs toward this default will work, and Apple errs toward this is going to work great with Apple hardware and everybody else can go fuck themselves.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We've got a lot of good Discord questions this month. So
it's a banner crop.
I'm just going to dive in here and pick one. This is an easy one. Let's start with this one. Shags Magoo. What kind of mouse grip do you find gentlemen use? Palm, fingertip, or claw?
I'm fingertip.
I've never quite been able to answer this question because like even as I'm holding my mouse as we speak, I feel like I'm halfway between palm and fingertip. I'm not sure.
Does the palm of your hand touch the mouse?
Just barely. That's the thing. Like kind of the ball of my hand sort of is barely resting on the back of the mouse, but otherwise it's kind of like fingertips only. So, because it's hard. In fact, it's hard for me to fully palm a mouse if that's what we're talking about with palm grip. Like get the whole body of the mouse in the palm. Like I don't even see how you can move a mouse like that.
The modern ones are too small. Do you move with your wrist or do you move with your arm?
Wrist. In fact, I've been using. I used to have a lot of wrist problems. RSI, I guess it was like pretty severe ache in my right wrist. I've been using just a basic little gel wrist rest for ages and pivot off of that. Like that's kind of the pivot point that my wrists moves back and forth on, and those problems pretty much went away. So
I use a wrist rest as well, but when I got into PUBG, a friend of mine who was a professional Counter-Strike player for a while was like, "Hey, when I watch you, it looks like you're aiming with your wrist." And I was like, "Yeah, what's wrong with that?" And he's like, "Well, you're going to mess up your wrist real bad, but also you have better precision with your hand and your arm and your fingertips. So you move your fingertips to do like precise movements and move your arm to do big movements." And he helped me do that and turn my sensitivity way down. And it made a fairly substantial difference in how I shoot in multiplayer games.
Sure.
So I do the fingertip. I always had done the fingertip grip before, but I use the fingertip for like fine up and down and side to side movements, and then the whole elbow movement for the faster stuff.
Okay. And you use ambidextrous mice, right?
My current mouse is a G Pro Superlight or 2 Superlight. I can't remember which one it is.
Okay.
I think it's the first gen one. So it's ambidextrous, but the buttons are only on the right thumb.
I've been on whatever the MX518 form factor is since that mouse was current. Like just bought a succession of mice with that. It's got the thumb groove kind of carved into the left side, so it's very much a right hand mouse.
And it's got a big hump too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that like having that thumb grip on a specific side kind of dictates how you hold it. In my case,
yeah, the Superlight's a little bit thinner, and I only use the side button. The thumb buttons I use for marking for ping usually, and for push to mute when I'm talking to people, when I'm talking to like a stream and leaving the chat, like the people I'm on Discord with muted. So yeah, that's where I am.
All right, cool. Here's a question from Riken Poe, I think is how you might say your name. This might have been a good ranking topic, actually.
Well, there's still time.
Yeah, that's true. Over the years, we have seen the rise and fall of many different processing units. Some have stuck around and some have faded into the annals of history. Do you think the NPU is likely to fade or stick around? Bonus question, do you think FPGAs could have a place as one of the next additions to CPUs?
So other PUs that have been around are the physics processing unit.
The PPU, obviously the GPU.
Yeah.
The APU is still a thing.
What's an APU?
I mean, that's what AMD calls their all-in-one. Like,
right.
That's a question for Adam at PC World or somebody in
It's
the
like an
know,
SoC though.
Like that's what I mean is like, is APU just kind of a marketing term really? Because all it really is just a CPU, GPU, full system on a chip kind of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just a marketing differentiator they came up with.
Yeah, I don't think APU fits this category, but like Bigfoot tried to pitch networks as a network processing unit. They're non-host based network cards that had janky drivers and would reduce your latency.
Oh, interesting. Because all the compute for the network overhead was on the card.
Yeah, but by that time there were already multi-core CPUs and it really didn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably argue there were some like sound processing units on like some of the more elaborate Creative Labs cards. Remember when onboard sound started becoming a big deal on motherboards and Creative kind of got desperate and started trying to like cram new features and higher quality stuff into their sound cards to stay relevant.
Well, before that, even Arial had those accelerators that would do HRTFs on the board. But I don't think they ever called them PUs.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't think they gave it a name. I haven't thought about Arial in a long time.
Yeah.
They're long gone, right?
They got bought by somebody who then got bought by somebody, and probably Creative Labs or HP or somebody owns them now. I think the NPU. So there's benefit to having dedicated linear algebra and like neural acceleration, even if AI stuff all goes away. Just like the quality of background blur on a Copilot Plus laptop is as good as the NVIDIA broadcast stuff. And it's just built in, support for that's just built into Windows. It's pretty good. Same thing for like live transcription and that kind of like, it's like, I kind of think of that as table stakes now for the AI stuff. And it's honestly the AI stuff that I like the best. I think.
Absolutely. I think we've been on this soapbox a little bit in the past recently, but I think it's becoming more and more pressing for people to make a distinction between kind of, I keep calling it signal processing AI. That term has not caught on, but something that takes a basic data input and spits it out in a mutated, transformed kind of form, right? Like you're talking about, like taking the data of your camera background and turning it into something else or blurring it out in a nice, elegant way. The LSS we keep talking about is a prime example of this.
Yeah.
Noise removal from microphone input or whatever, like just basic stuff like that. Like those are good, solid, productive uses of AI. It's like, it's the generative AI stuff that obviously is so odious to so many people for understandable reasons.
Yeah. So I think the NPU, like, here's the thing, the amount of die space they're devoting to this stuff is still relatively low. On CPUs, the die space is a little bit less competitive than say GPUs. And I think the benefits of having a dedicated floor of 40 tops or whatever it is that the Copilot Plus stuff requires is probably worth keeping around. Now that said, if we don't find better uses for it, I think we'll like that. I think it might get squeezed down until it's 10 tops or whatever the background blur requires to be pretty good. Now the question about FPGAs, I think, is even more interesting, right?
It is interesting. I don't know that I have a great answer, but I don't see, I mean, we're definitely not experts in CPU chip design, but I don't see a pressing reason to put one on CPU die versus dedicated implementations where they're needed.
I actually like the reason you won't see them is because they're for specialty applications, really.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So like audio processing and stuff like emulation and things like that, you'll see them be used as add-on cards or as standalone machines rather than integrate. Like Intel builds CPUs to sell 1 billion copies of the same CPU, right? They don't want to make one-offs that are specials. Now, if the disaggregated architecture stuff takes off, then maybe you'll be able to buy some specialty like data center stuff that has FPGAs in it or whatever. But I think that's further down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't know, this is based on very limited experience. I think FPGAs have like pretty significant speed limitations compared to your average like high-end CPU these days. So I don't know that it would mix well from that perspective.
They're slow, and like the time, like shifting them from one mode to another is really expensive computationally in terms of the time it takes. Like think about how long it takes to change cores on the Mister or something like that. And like it's not, typically it's faster to just run it on a CPU than it would be to load up the FPGA with the stuff you need and then switch over to that and then switch back to whatever else it was running. And like they're not for general purpose computing.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case. Question from Bayfu. Do you have any favorite tech-related anime, examples being Serial, Experiments Lane, or Gundam?
Oh, man.
You got anything?
I don't really have any favorite anime.
Wow. All right. Well,
I mean, I like Totoro.
The gauntlet has been thrown down.
Okay, I'm old.
Yeah.
We didn't have, we got a little, Voltron is a thing that they played on Saturday afternoon if the baseball game got rained out when I was a kid.
Okay, sure.
And so the anime that I was exposed to was like Transformers and GoBots. And
kind of a funny thing about people our age. We were kind of watching anime without realizing it in the 80s.
They called it, they had worse names for it back then.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, by the time Dragon Ball and all that stuff kind of exploded onto the scene, I was too old. I like Cowboy Bebop and all that stuff as much as the next person.
I was wondering, I've never seen that. I was wondering if that was a good example though.
Oh my God, you've never seen Cowboy Bebop?
No.
Oh, Brad,
I've gotten the sense that one might fall into this category pretty well.
You should just watch the Netflix live action thing. People say it's great. It's going to be exactly what you want from it.
I've heard it's just as good, right? Like you're getting the exact same experience.
It's just like that, but with that guy from Star Trek.
I took this question because I have now seen Serial Experiments Lane because we watched that on the Next Lander Watchcast.
Ooh.
And yeah, like that. I mean, that anime is computer as shit. It's cyber as shit.
It's like cyberpunky and
it came out in 98, so the internet was starting to become more widely available generally to people, but it does kind of prefigure some of the early online internet communities and the anonymity and global network stuff. And there's also, this stuff is much more nebulous. It's not grounded in any kind of reality, but there's just a lot of really good computing imagery in that thing. As I won't get into spoiling the nature of what's going on exactly, but the girl's bedroom just becomes more and more full of bigger and more gnarly looking computers over time.
Okay, I like that.
Without any explanation, to the point that it's still my phone lock screen a year and change later.
That's pretty good.
Just a shot of her from sitting at this monitor with all these other monitors and weird tubes and computers around her.
Is it like red NEC ATXT clones and stuff like that?
It starts getting a little more surreal than that, let's say.
Okay.
It's a lot of weird tubes and monitors at weird angles, and there are some weird red lights and stuff. It's very little recognizable as off the shelf computers at that point.
At one point, I asked a friend of the show, if I want to get into Gundam, where should I start? And about an hour later, I was like, I think I'm probably okay. I think I'm scared now. This is too much.
Sure. Could see it.
So yeah, I don't know.
I'm like you though. I have not seen enough anime beyond Lane to really comment on that too much, but drop some.
You should watch Cowboy Bebop is good. You should watch Cowboy Bebop. It's 14 episodes too. It's easy.
Should probably watch that at some point.
The problem with a lot of the way they showed when you did get something that was anime and you were like, man, this is really cool, but it was all designed to be watched serially, and it also had bad translations often. And the people who were airing it didn't give a shit what order they showed it in. So you'd get episode 1. It was, got the Firefly treatment. You'd get episode 1, then you get episode 23, then you get episode 4, then you get episode 7. And you had no idea what was going on.
Or if you wanted the real stuff, you had to go to the Suncoast video at the mall. Mm-hmm. And I never engaged in this, but I knew people who were into this sort of thing. I was what was it, $35 for a VHS with 2 or 3 episodes of Ranma 1/2 on it?
Yeah, they were so expensive.
It was a dark time.
I did watch I watched a bunch of Legends of the Galactic Heroes.
Okay, I think I've heard of that.
Which is it's like a space mill sim type thing.
All right. There were a lot of those.
I mean, it was, I feel like what is that? Battleship Yamamoto?
Or Yamato?
Space Battleship Yamato.
I think that's right.
People are going to screaming at their radios right now.
Hang on. Well, if I just type Yamato into Google,
you're going to get something else.
Of course, that'll give us exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, Space Battleship Yamato. That was another one of the things that was shown on Saturday afternoon baseball rainouts, completely out of order.
Ooh, okay. It is in fact called Space Battleship Yamato. That is some good 70s looking anime right there.
Oh, it was so I remember watching that and thinking, man, this is the coolest stuff I've ever seen. I wish I had any idea what was going on. So yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, there you go. Let's see. Here's a question from Ambush Penguin Charlie. Considering the interesting times we are and soon will be living in, how useful is an encrypted service like Signal if no one else in your social circle is using it or something similar? Are encrypted services an all or nothing kind of thing, or do I get some benefit even if no one else is using them? No, they are in fact an all or nothing.
Well, I think it encrypts your stuff on your end, but the other end will be unencrypted. Like the encrypted services in general are only as good as your friends are.
Right.
So
well,
like,
I mean, but I think in the case of something like Signal, I don't think you even, or WhatsApp, like you can't even communicate with people unless they're using the same app on the other end. Right?
No, but also you can do, your friends on the other end can do stupid stuff like not encrypt they can save logs and not encrypt the logs.
Sure.
And then you might as well, like I said, you're only as secure as your friends are.
Yes.
So,
but I think that's a different situation than something like the Messages app on iOS, where you might be sending iMessages to some people and SMS to other people, and maybe even RCS to yet other people.
I think on Signal on Android you can send SMS.
Really?
Like it can be it for. I don't know if it still can. For a long time, it could be your SMS client on the Android side.
Okay.
I think Google might have changed that actually a few years ago when I think about it, but.
The nice thing about at least like Signal and WhatsApp is that generally they'll tell you right there in the message window if your conversation is encrypted or not.
That is actually true.
Like it'll just say, hey, your conversation is end to end encrypted with this person, because it'll just detect that. So at least you know.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you're connected directly to the Signal service with Signal. I don't think that they let you. I'm trying to figure out if they let you do archives, run archives anymore, and I can't tell. Here we go, chats. It you can clear chat history, but I don't think you can turn history off entirely anymore. So anyway,
we should revisit the subject of RCS at some point. I don't know if it's quite there yet, but we've talked about it before. RCS is the successor protocol to SMS.
Yeah,
which is kind of more or less brings you the features of something like iMessage, but in a carrier and phone and platform agnostic format.
Kind of. Asterisk.
Yeah, the problem is the original spec for RCS did not include encryption. I think we've maybe touched on this briefly.
I think that was an intentional choice by some. Yeah,
maybe. Well, but they're working on it now, though. Like Apple in particular was pretty surly about the fact that it didn't have encryption, and so they are trying to add that to the spec. Last I checked. So the point is, who knows how many years it'll take from now? But if they get all that stuff in place and all the phones that don't support it phase out of the market slowly, like eventually we might get to the point where kind of all phone to phone communication is
10 years.
Yeah, like it could be something like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe everything will just be encrypted as a matter of course.
Be nice.
But we are nowhere near there yet.
No.
Let's see. Question from Meatball. Man, these are big numbers. I'm looking at wading into 300 plus gigabytes and over 33,000 personal and family photos that were either scanned or taken digitally in the last 50 to 60 years.
Oh, wow.
I was really hoping AI would be at a point now that I could just point at it and say, find and remove duplicates, and then go through and organize and tag all of it so that I and future family can easily find stuff and know who all those old people are in the pictures. But I don't think we're there yet. Any experience with any apps that could help or ways to go about cleaning up and organizing all the photos?
So I don't have, 33,000. I think when we looked at it, I think we took 10,000 pictures the year that my daughter was born.
Damn.
Which is not unusual when we talk to other people about it.
Yeah, but I assume necessarily quite a few of them are not exact duplicates, but pretty close to like just kind of rapid fire.
Yeah, there's a lot of 10 pictures to get one good one.
Right.
And if you're not really fastidious about deleting, you end up with a massive data problem. My solution for that has been to just upload everything to Google Photos and then not think about it anymore, which worked really, really well until they started hooking Gemini up to it. And now it's gone to shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm actively looking at moving off of Google Photos. I haven't found any local store, like self-hosted thing that seems viable. The Apple Photos app seems pretty good now. It still has some weird problems. It's one of those things that like, if you come into it now and you haven't looked at it in a while, you're like, oh, it's pretty good. But if you used to use iPhoto, then you're like, oh man, they still don't have my favorite feature from 12 years ago. I don't know that there is a good solution. This is an enshittification situation as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Because like it really, like, to be clear, the thing that's happening with Google Photos for me is that when I open up a month and a date that I know that there's a photo, the photo is just not there. And you used to be able to search by keywords for things inside the photos. That seems to have degraded. Like a few months ago, it just deleted all the face tags in my, I think I must have missed an email that said, hey, you have to re-opt into this if you want to keep face tags. And now I have to recreate all the face tags that I added over the last 9 or 10 years or whatever it's been of using Google Photos.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is like some form of corporate bit rot, like corporately mandated bit rot. Like there's no reason this had to happen other than the policies changed.
It's pretty frustrating. Yeah. Cause it almost seems like you're losing metadata. Cause like there's big categories of photos that it's like, hey, we don't know what date this photo is, but it's very clearly on a date when there were 35 other photos taken. And it's the same line of photos. It just has decided that one doesn't have the data. So anyway, I set up what is it? G-Sync? No, G-Clone. What's the R-Clone?
R-Clone.
I set up R-Clone and pulled everything off. I haven't delved into that data pool at this point.
It's a lot of files.
It is a lot of files.
That's a lot of, sometimes this massive data that you accumulate kind of ends up hanging around your neck, I find.
Yeah. And the thing that I found looking at it briefly is that there's a bunch of open source projects and kind of commercial projects that seem like they're pretty good, but not all the way there. If people have stuff that they've used and would recommend, I would love it if you'd write into techpod@content.town and I'll take a look at them and evaluate, and we'll do an episode about it at some point in the future. Because like it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually wonder, going back to the question about NPUs, as that hardware starts to proliferate, as more cheap GPUs have machine learning, and then it starts getting shoved into more CPUs, like as more of that capability is out there, if more open projects will start springing up that take advantage of it and leverage it for stuff like photo organization, like the compute's not there yet in a critical mass for to be worth making something like that yet, but we'll get there.
It is. If you look at it, though, it is. The GPUs have been around for a long time that can do this stuff. So like if you have a dedicated machine, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah. Looking at the way open source projects spring up, I could definitely see people just looking at the amount of extra machine learning capability out there at some point and just going like, hey, we should start using this for good.
That's true.
Start doing something like what we're talking about here. This is not really in the same category as the photo organization, but have you heard of paperless NGX? Is
this the thing that you scan your documents into and then they become, that sounds nice.
Or you can feed it existing documents as well. I haven't looked into it too much. I am totally going to set it up at some point though. It's basically a document organization library. It's an open source project. I think it'll take all the documents you feed it and convert them into some kind of standard PDF form for searchability, but it'll also keep all the original documents there alongside. But it's just like a web interface that indexes all the documents you feed it and makes them searchable and everything. It seems pretty great. I'm going to check that out at some point.
So the thing that I've looked at that I think is the one I'm going to start trying is called Photo Structure. It was recommended by folks. There's a thread about this from not too long ago, a few years ago, in our data hoarders. And it's a big giant project. It's paid. It's not super expensive. It's it's one of those ones where like the light version is really good and you get more stuff if you give them $50 a year or something.
Sure.
It seems pretty good. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't tested it, but it's where I'm going to start, and then I'm going to go from there.
All kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Actually, let's see. I have a question. This dovetails with the last one pretty well. From Patch. There's been a lot of talk over the past few episodes about curbing hoarding habits in meat space, but what about in cyberspace? Any tips for rationalizing all the data I have across my NAS, various cloud services, and computer hard drives? I've worked out in total, I have about 10 terabytes of storage I've accumulated over the past decade or so. How do I decide what to keep versus delete, and what's a good way to sort through it all for duplicated data?
I say don't worry about duplicated data. That's just free backups.
Yeah.
For real though, deduping stuff is scary, and it's how you lose data.
Yeah. Yes. There are applications out there that will find duplicated stuff for you, but yes, be very careful to make sure you know that it's definitely an exact dupe.
I don't worry about digital hoarding as long as I can find the stuff that I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 4 folders. One is for video, one is for music, one is for documents, and one is for just assorted things.
Okay. That seems sensible.
Yeah, that's all. That's all the data you need could fit in those four buckets.
Yep. This doesn't help for sorting so much, but I mean, we've advocated everything. The void tools, everything is a great way to index all of your data, so you can at least search it very quickly, and that could help you sort through and find things to delete.
Then you don't have to sort it though if you index everything appropriately.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, you have to know what you're looking for. Like
that's true.
A search tool is great for targeted retrieval of something, but if you just want to browse everything and it's a gigantic mess, it doesn't help so much.
But like if I wanted to find my X-Men Legends 2 ROM disk that I pulled off of a GameCube copy, I'm good to go.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Everything has been amazing for sorting through the gigantic Mister library that I have accumulated.
Yeah.
For example, I wish I had a better answer here because I am also in this boat badly, and I can't think of much besides just brute forcing it. Like you just got to set some time aside and get in there. And like, dude, I've got so many like whole hard drive backups on my NAS from the last 15 to 20 years of computers. Like there are entire Windows installs in there because I was too lazy to, once I backed up an entire hard drive, go in there and delete application files I don't need.
Here's the way you do it is easy. You have on your desktop, you have a folder called My Old C Drive.
Oh, dude,
and then you go into C users in that old C drive, and on the desktop folder there's one that says old C drive there, and then you just keep going back in time.
Oh yeah,
until you're like a 25 meg 386 hard drive.
I've got countless nested old desktop folders on the NAS from about the time I moved out here in 2003.
The big problem I have right now is that I have in my garage, there's a cardboard box that's on the low shelf that has about 50 hard drives in it because I just pulled a hard drive from every old computer.
Yep. Well, I at least have started disposing of the drives after I back them up now.
Oh, that's good.
E-wasting them. So that's the real answer to this question is just every 3 years or so, just wait for a good shucking deal or something. Just buy more hard drives and then you don't have to think about it anymore.
E-waste it all.
It's a constant problem.
It's a real problem.
Now let's stay on the theme of old stuff here a little bit. I guess.
I love old stuff.
Question from Park, who may not love old stuff so much. I've never enjoyed platformers, Metroidvanias, or boomer shooters, but it feels like so many of the personalities we love are obsessed with those. I just don't know how we are supposed to handle that anymore. It's like the old guy at your job that has radio control that doesn't stop listening to classic rock.
I feel kind of attacked here.
A bit.
I don't know that I like boomer shooters, just to be real.
I mean, I do. I like the ones I grew up with.
Well, but that's just a retro game, though. That's not a boomer shooter.
I like Doom and Quake, and to a much lesser extent, Duke 3D and some other stuff like that. But I've got nothing against the modern day retro, like throwback first person shooters that come out. I just don't play a ton of them.
Yeah, like if I had a bumper sticker, it would say I'd rather be playing Quake 3.
Yes. Yes. Right? I am like, believe it or not, after like 2 or 3 years of talking about this, I am inching closer to my ultimate dream of running full-time Quake servers out of here.
Oh, I thought you were going to say growing John Romero hair and
oh, I tried that.
Okay.
That way lies madness if you're not John Romero. But
I mean, the thing that I was going to hook on here is the idea that the personalities we love are obsessed with those. And I feel like there are people like, for example, there are people whose work that I love that are into like cozy games and farming sims and stuff like that. And like, look, did I play a lot of Rusty's Retirement this year? Yes. But also when I played Rusty's Retirement, it was just kind of running at the bottom of my second monitor and I was engaging with it ever so lightly. It's not like, I find it's okay for me to appreciate stuff without having the same kind of love or obsession or whatever that somebody that's really, really into it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Or just not like, there's some stuff that like, Brad, there's stuff that you like that I just don't give a shit about. And that's fine.
Much to my ongoing chagrin, I can't tell you about Vim whenever I want to.
Look, I don't want to hear about your weird Vim stuff, man.
And it's not tell you how I'm way more productive with it. I'm not joking.
I love your growth hacking and I'm proud of you for engaging in expanding your horizons. I don't do enough text editing to need Vim.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. I wish I had this study in front of me that I've been seeing some people on social media posting. I don't even know if it's a new study or not, but it seems to prove like very, very definitively that, in fact, I think you had heard of this when I brought it up to you off air, that the ages between 10 and 15 are pretty much like universally recognized by everyone on Earth as the best time in their lives. In terms of like, you know, the study is asking specific questions about like when were the best movies released? What were like, you know, when was your favorite music? And it's like, without fail, there's just a kind of bell curve right in the middle of like age 12 or so for everyone.
So, yeah, I'm looking at the Washington Post article that was going around today with this. It was by Andrew Van Dam, whose profile picture looks like one of those AI generated user icons, which bums me out. But anyway, he says that this is a YouGov thing who surveyed a bunch of people. And the commonality is that it's when you're 10 to 15 years old, basically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's not exactly news to people. Like that phenomenon has been incredibly evident in video games for a very long time. You know, like you can chart what is popular in a retro sense with like the age of people relative to when they were about that age. You know, it's like the Final Fantasy VII remakes fully came about because all the people who were 12 when Final Fantasy VII came out are in their prime disposable income years now.
Yeah, it's the people who are into retro hardware watched this happen with the NES and the SNES and the Genesis and the Saturn. And
we're now moving into late 90s and early 2000s versions of that stuff.
Wait, so my GameCube stuff is Xbox One is worth something now?
Oh, dude, people are modding original Xboxes left and right. Have we not talked about this?
No, we should do an episode about this.
Are you kidding me? People are coming up with homebrew interposers to put a different CPU socket in an original Xbox.
What?
So they can put a faster era appropriate Intel CPU in there.
That is nuts.
Yes, there are some crazy videos on YouTube you can go find.
Was the original Xbox like a Celeron 700 or something?
I believe that's about right. Actually, it's like a 733 megahertz Celeron, something like that. People are putting like 1.4 gigahertz Intel CPUs into original Xboxes now, and like quadrupling the system memory and stuff.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
So yeah, anyway, the point is Stephen King wrote about this years and years ago in his On Writing book, or maybe it was one of the other books, but his thesis was always that when you look in the mirror, you see yourself as you were 19.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I bought into that for a long time. I think 15 is maybe younger. I was not, my best years were not when I was 15. Let's see, I was 15 in 1990, so it was like Guns N' Roses, and like for me, 20 was much better than 15.
Yeah, fair.
We'd grunge, we had alternative, hip hop was good.
Yeah. Anyway, all your favorite personalities aren't obsessed with boomer shooters, I swear. Now on to this next question from P-Town 356.
This is a serious question for serious people.
Better Doom shotgun, single or double barrel?
Double barrel, baby.
Wait, really?
No hesitation.
Oh, I think I'm partial to the single shot.
What?
I just something about it. Something about the firing rate and the sound effect.
Oh, the cha-chonk. And then the like you had to be thoughtful using that double barrel because it took so long to reload.
That's for sure. I also don't find the spread on it that useful. Like the double barrel is good for running up to an enemy that takes a lot of damage and dumping into them and killing them faster.
Yeah.
But I would never use it on like a crowd of smaller enemies.
No, shotguns aren't for crowds. Like, look, you walk right up to a pinky demon in the face and you pop that thing with a double barrel. Yeah. It goes to sleep forever, Brad.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I kind of feel like the regular Doom shotgun is the Quake rocket launcher of Doom.
I mean, I would say the rocket launcher is the Quake rocket launcher of Doom. But
I mean, the Doom rocket launcher is fine, but it's not necessarily my favorite weapon.
When I used to play a lot of Doom multiplayer, honestly, the big chain gun was probably the thing. Like, as a person who almost exclusively played against people who only played with the keyboard and I was using the mouse, so I was like a god amongst men. Mm-hmm. The chain gun made you an unstoppable killing machine because it was hit scan. You could just stick it on the person. You didn't have to aim. I mean, you had to aim, but like it was really easy with the mouse. And I was not a big shotgun multiplayer guy at all.
Sure, I could see it.
You did this unimaginative pseudonym one.
Sure. Well, I was saving that for last, actually.
Oh, okay.
Let's come back to that one.
Okay.
I think that's a good closer for the holidays here.
Okay.
I've got a few that I pulled from past episodes that we didn't get to that I really wanted to. Let's see. Here's one from Zed XED. I have a Razer Orb Weaver MMO keypad that has been unsupported for a long time, which I've continually had to reanimate by replacing switches, etc. This is because my WoW muscle memory is fully tied to it now, even going as far as filming a switch replacement for others in the same predicament.
Oh, man. What
pieces of old technology have you committed to keep running, whether due to reliance or you just prefer them to what's out there currently?
Boy, that's tough. I did. I kept Natural Keyboard Pro going for a really, really long time.
Sure. Yeah. Could see that.
Other old stuff. Like, I don't I mean, my Sennheiser HD 580s,
Yeah.
I've replaced all the hardware on them at this point, cables, headband, pads. I had to I broke the arm off of them one time and I had to fix that.
But I don't actually headphone.
I don't use them on the day-to-day anymore because I use these wireless ones now.
Yeah, that's understandable. That is maybe the classic headphone.
I feel like there was an audiophile blog that did an article about them, a retrospective a few years ago that was like, this is the thing that kicked off high-end headphones. Like those headphones kicked off the whole high-end headphone scene.
Totally. I got a slightly lower end Sennheiser model around the time those got big, and I bought them refurb when I was in college because I didn't have a lot of money. But yes, like getting your hands on your first pair of Sennheisers around the turn of the century was a very eye-opening or ear-opening moment.
There's a video of me going into like the silent sound booth on the CES floor at the Sennheiser booth in probably 2011 or 2012 that I got to put on a pair of $4,000 headphones.
Wow.
I mean, and like part of the value of that was being in a quiet room on the floor of the CES show was real nice, but also the headphones sounded like it was not a, just to be clear, not a listening environment that you could reasonably compare and evaluate a multi-$1,000 pair of headphones, which is a ridiculous purchase.
Fair.
They sounded real good though.
I bet. Yeah. My answer, the only answer I could come up with here is actually also sound related. It's these Cambridge Soundworks PC Works.
And those are classics.
Things are built like a tank. They still sound quite good. I'm sure they're a bit, well, actually, I don't know if there are better sounding speakers out there.
I think the Klipsch 2.1s the Klipsch Pro Media 2.1s probably are better or comparable at worst.
Yeah. But these are still actually quite good for what they are, and they take up so little desk space, which is great. Also, I'm just very attached to them from a nostalgic standpoint at this point. Like the fact that these are the ones I bought in college when Quake 3 got big, and they're still going, just kind of makes me feel a little connected to those halcyon days, I guess. And also, the subwoofer has been powered on almost continuously for the last 20 something years, and it's still going.
So I, at the same time, bought a set of Altic Lansing ACS 48s, which was the other, like the 2.1 speaker / subwoofer speaker sets came out at about the same time. And the Soundworks was one of them. The ACS 48s were the other. The ACS 48 subwoofer was wood, and it had this kind of thin stretched nylon. It was almost like foam that was stretched, but it wasn't. It was cloth. Yeah. But the cloth broke down over time and turned yellow and got transparent, and then eventually started crumbling. And I got rid of mine when that happened.
That's a shame.
And I have regrets.
Yep. Old speakers tend to hold up.
Yeah.
When they're good. I found an eBay auction of I think it was a 4-speaker, because remember they started doing like 4-point versions of the PC Works.
Didn't they do 4.2s even?
I think there were some of those, yes. But this was a black one, mine are beige. And it was like a not new in box, but a good shape in box, like black set of these. And I should have bought it. It just felt frivolous to buy. But I would love to have a black set of these things, and maybe I'll keep looking at eBay for that. Also, the last thing I'll say real quick, I probably have said this exact thing before on this podcast, but it turned out that my sister had also bought these same speakers when she was in college.
Oh, that's amazing.
A few years after me, and didn't use them that much. And then I discovered them in my parents' basement a few years ago.
Oh, man.
And hoovered that whole set up immediately. And so now I have an entire backup set that is very lightly used of these same speakers.
Oh, my God.
And considering this set of speakers has lasted me since 99 or 2000, this starts sounding weird. So it's sounding weird, but I might never use another model of PC speakers in my entire life.
It's really funny because like these days I have a set of monitors, like big, like nice studio monitor speakers that I don't ever use because the number of wires that you need for them to work right is just too much.
Yeah.
So I am jelly of your Soundworkses.
Yeah. They're pretty damn good.
You're covered for the rest of your life, man.
Yeah,
You're good.
That's right. It's kind of a good feeling, you know?
Okay to go.
It's like that Fight Club thing with the living room set, you know? I've got the speaker, whatever else happens, I've got this speaker thing covered.
I don't think that was a good thing for what it's worth.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
This is a good question from Try. I recently purchased an entry-level mirrorless camera for photography. It came with a bonus power bank that focuses on jump-starting dead car batteries. While yes, it does have USB ports, it doesn't appear that my camera can charge the battery through USB. So my question is, what's the weirdest thrown-in freebie that you've gotten with a high-cost purchase?
I don't think I've ever gotten a freebie, like some weird off thing.
Yeah. The only one I could think of, this was not a high-cost purchase by any means, but I bought... I had a couple of, I believe it was these network. It was either the network. No, I think it was my host bus adapter. It was one of the server pulled PCIe cards that is in my PC and NAS now that lets you use a bunch of extra hard drives and do the 40 gigabit networking and all that. I think it was anyway. It came with, like for a 1U rack mount, like half height mounting bracket on a PCIe card. The card I got only had that half height and I needed the full height to mount it in a regular ATX case. So I had to go out there and find the exact right bracket. Maybe it was these network cards. I don't remember. Anyway, I had to go find the right bracket to fit on to replace on the card to mount it in my actual case. It was like a pair of the brackets. With the brackets came a melon slicer. Oh, you ever seen one of these like rotating, like on a, like the kind of like a, I don't know how you describe it.
It's like an old apple peeler and slicer and core, but it's melon sized, right?
Like a series of blades on a little hinge kind of thing that you just roll it along and like carve out little chunks of melon as you roll it.
Yeah, that sounds dope.
Like, why did I get a melon slicer with this server mounting bracket hardware?
There was a guy selling those at FogFest last year. That sounded great. I almost bought one.
I regret to say we never actually tried it, and then we ended up donating it.
Oh, well, but there you go. It could have been amazing. Could have changed your life.
It was it was fun just to contemplate why the hell they did that.
I remember the first time I bought my microphone shock mount has these rubber bands that occasionally, I say occasionally. When I first bought this microphone, I went through like 6 of them in no time, and then it hasn't broken at all in 3 years. So knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I ordered replacement rubber bands from Sweetwater, and when I opened it up and there was a little pack of hard candy in there, I was real excited. Oh. That's the best thing I've gotten, I think.
Did you eat the candy?
I probably had a mint. I'm butterscotch is butterscotch was not hot when I was 10 to 15 years old. Therefore, I did not feel strong nostalgia for it.
Man, you don't like butterscotch candy?
No, fuck butterscotch. It's bad.
Is Werther's original butterscotch, or is that its own thing?
I think it's Werther's. I think that's Werther's original. Werther's, I'll give it an exception to, but I bet my teeth would hurt now if I ate Werther's.
Oh yeah, you can't bite down on that.
I mean, even if I just sucked on them, probably.
Yes. Let's see here. Question from C Music. This one is from late November.
Okay.
I am about to buy an iRacing subscription. What's the worst thing you've bought on Black Friday?
I bought an iRacing subscription last Black Friday, and then I used it like 4 times because setting up the wheel is such an enormous pain in the ass that I hardly ever do it.
I can see that.
Yeah. I need a rec room is the lesson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, who doesn't?
I would love to have a basement that I could just chuck a sled in and hook up a spare monitor, and that would be so nice.
Yep. That's the dream. I don't know if this is not a worst purchase necessarily, but I bought a year of a virtual private server on Black Friday.
That seems like an awesome thing to do if you want to host games at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I'm getting closer to my dream of running Quake servers and related stuff. I have not spent a lot of time with it. I'm still working on home stuff before I can really get into that more, but that was a fun one. I got a good deal on it. They just send you the host that I went with. Again, it was a very good deal. It was maybe not the most recommended host out there, but it was very cheap.
That's fine.
They just email you the root login, like the default.
You should probably change that. I would change that one.
The stock Rocky Linux image that they deployed on my VPS right after I bought it has root SSH login enabled, and they just emailed me the login.
That seems fine.
And then nobody got into it, but I did leave it running overnight the first night. Got up the next morning and logged back into it, and it said roughly there were something like 571 failed login attempts to the VPS overnight while I left it running.
Yep.
And I disabled root login and changed the SSH port immediately, but there is much work yet to be done on that thing.
Yeah, that's great power comes great responsibility in that situation, Brad. Yeah.
You know, it's fun though. If you spend a lot of time SSHing into machines in your house all the time.
Yeah.
And then later you get a VPS and you realize, oh, I'm actually just doing the same thing to a data center in Texas now that I have been doing in my house for the last 5 years. It's like, oh, this is exactly the same stuff. I've actually prepared myself well for this.
Yep.
I'm excited to mess around with that.
I'm excited to hear how that goes. I hadn't ever considered using one of those as a proxy to host servers, but it's a good idea.
That's well, so in the case of like the Quake servers, like those are, that's 30-year-old software practically. Like I could just run those right on the VPS. There's really no reason to proxy those to my house other than the wish fulfillment of I would love to know that the Quake servers are running on the box next to my desk.
Well, also, depending on how, I can't remember, how Quake might be bigger than your, like often on those cheap VPSs, the storage is only like 100 gigs or something like that. So you might actually fill it up depending on, or no, it's not even that. It's like 12 gigs or something is my Linode.
I got very good specs. Like I said, this was not one of the high end providers that charges a lot. I got shockingly good specs for about $5 a month on this one.
Okay. That's pretty good.
I'm not sure how fast it is though. It does seem like maybe a little sluggish. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about that more when I dig into it more.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear how it goes.
Let's see. Here's another Shags Magoo question. How many tabs do you have open at this exact moment? What do you think is the optimal number of tabs to have at any general time?
There's no easy way to count, but I have to scroll when I open up the little list of tabs on the side of Firefox.
I'd say at most I probably end a day. I'm just ballparking here anywhere from 50 to 100, probably not 100. 100 is like I've been deep down a rabbit hole of pursuing some project that I'm trying to figure out or dealing with some Linux issue or something. Like normal day, like maybe 2 or 3 dozen at a time. You're still counting. You're just sitting there making mouth.
62.
You have to talk when you move your mouth.
62 is where I ended up.
All right. That sounds, that's a kind of a heavy load for me at a time, but not that many.
That's looking at the start. This is a several different days worth of searching on, because I don't use my desktop computer a lot in the middle of the week sometimes. So
wait, do you sleep?
Huh?
Do you sleep the PC?
No, but I just restore all my tabs when I start.
Oh, see, I clean slate everything every morning.
No, I can't. I would never be able to remember what I was talking. Like, I have everything from where to find frozen Mariah Carey in Fortnite Chapter 6 to some news stuff to like some gift stuff that I'm looking at to do you have pins? Do you do pin tabs that always open?
Not often. In fact, kind of never actually.
Oh man, I keep all my emails open in pin tabs. I keep Blue Sky in pin tabs. I keep the Twitch control panel, Home Assistant.
Now here's a question.
Other things.
Do you just use one big browser window for it and then with a million tabs in it?
So it depends. If I'm doing, the one thing I do is if I'm doing like a big project that's going to open up a bazillion tabs, like for example, we already clearly at the time we're recording this episode, we already did a bunch of research about connectors and we're preparing to rank a bunch of connectors.
Yeah.
But when I did that, I definitely opened up a new tab, a new window rather, and then put all the tabs in there. And then that way though, that window is saved as well. Cause I have an extension that I use that I can just save an entire Windows state as a bookmark basically, and then open it again when I want it.
That's cool. I should look into something like that. Yeah, I'll have like 4 to 7 different windows open at any given time. Like I try to keep tabs sort of loosely sorted in Windows based on subject.
Oh yeah, it's only 2 windows for me at most.
Okay.
Yeah, well, unless I'm doing a video call. Like right now I have Chrome open with our call in it, and then I have 2 Firefox windows open.
Yeah.
The thing I'll say is saving the bookmarks as a group is really nice when I've done something on the server and I want to remember what I used to figure out how to do it. It's a good tool to come back to that.
Sure. I've kind of become aware via social media recently that some people get like weirdly precious about their browser tabs, as in they have hundreds to thousands open at a time and try to maintain them for months on end. It just seems, given how much memory modern browsers tend to consume, maybe seems a bit dubious.
Well, so that's why I stopped using Chrome and started using Firefox originally, is Firefox would sleep tabs that have not been touched in a while.
Yeah, I think Chrome does that too now.
Chrome does that now too. You can turn it off in Chrome if you want.
I think I turned it off because I have 64 gig of memory and I don't keep that many tabs open, so I just want them to respond immediately.
Yeah, see, I'm comfortable waiting 10 seconds. But yeah, I don't worry too much. Occasionally I just declare tab bankruptcy and open the first tab and then right click and say close everything on the right of this.
Yep.
That works.
Yep. Sometimes it feels good to just purge everything, start fresh. Every day, every morning, cold boot, Fresh browser.
That's madness.
It's the way
that
to
way
live.
lies madness.
The way to live. Let's see. You've highlighted this Tyler W.
I was just idly clicking, but it's a good question.
Now I've said it. I have to read it. I know you guys are deep in the business of learning new skills, especially when they benefit your work or home life. But are there any skills that you have preemptively excused yourself from ever learning for whatever reason? For me, it's making espresso. I love coffee and I love espresso, but once I stared into the abyss of the cost of having my own machine, operating and maintaining it, I became perfectly fine with letting espresso be a rare treat that someone else makes for me. What about you?
Man, espresso is precisely where I live with that.
Okay.
When I wrote the PC building book at Maximum PC, I took some of my money that I made from that and I bought a $1,000 espresso machine that I put on the counter, and I kept filtered water around for it, and I descaled it every 2.5 months or 3 months. And I never once, and I bought a good grinder and I learned how to do all the stuff. And I went to the coffee shop downtown. I took a class and I still never really got a good cup of coffee out of it. Like, it was okay, but it was not like the best that I ever did was on par with like a shitty Starbucks. And as a result, it's just not, it's so much hassle. It takes so long for the thing to warm up. Yeah. Anyway, there are better espresso machines on the market now than that one. Like, you can get for $500 a Breville. That's quite nice, is my understanding. But like Tyler W, I'm happy to just let somebody do that for me. I also think, after trying it a few times, I don't know that I'm going to ever write. Like, I think I'm always going to be the kind of person that can look at a script or look at some Python or something and kind of fuck with it until it works the way I want it to. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I'm ever the person that's going to start with a blank page and end up with something that's usable.
Really? Oh, I thought you were going to say, okay, because it's the opposite for me. I don't write a ton of code, but I have very much found in the last couple of years that writing code is infinitely easier than reading somebody else's.
It's really funny because I have such a hard time knowing where to start with anything, and I can always parse out how it works.
Interesting.
Or not always, but often, especially with stuff that's human readable, like Python and PowerShell script and stuff like that.
Stuff like Python is much easier to parse than like C or whatever, which I dabbled with just a little bit. But yeah, like I've got a number of like 75 to 400 line little Python utilities that I use for all kinds of work stuff these days.
That's cool. Do you have you looked at like Advent of Code and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I've never had time to get into it, but
yeah,
it's embarrassing. But I guess everybody's got, maybe this is a good answer to this question. Everybody's got like hobbies they tap out of due to lack of time and mental energy and stuff. But I've had multiple aborted attempts to get into some lower level coding over the last couple of years. Like, I got 6 or 7 chapters into the Rust book.
Brad's Rust Adventure. I remember that.
Before I put it down, I started going through, and I might pick this back up. I started going through the classic Kernighan-Ritchie, the C programming language. Like,
I remember. Yeah.
Like the one, maybe I've talked about that, but that one also, I was making some good progress, but stuff always just comes up, and it's hard to stick to something intensely technical like that if it's not your job.
For me, there's something really satisfying about going to the coffee shop and just being like, hey, here's $5.
Yeah, sure.
Please make me a nice cup of coffee. And you get to watch them do it, and you have a nice little conversation, and like, and it's like a special treat.
Yeah. But the espresso example is a good one of like, diminishing returns is not the right phrase, but it's something that requires so much commitment and time and trial and error to get even like moderately competent at, that at a certain point, like there are other disciplines or skills you could gain way more proficiency in with the same amount of time that you are just barely scrambling to do anything with the spread. You get what I'm saying?
Well, it's like, yeah, because like if you compare that to brewed coffee, like I'm at this point, it takes me longer than a professional, like somebody who's good at it would, to dial in new beans or whatever and figure out exactly what my temperature and grind and all, and like linger time and all that stuff should be in the brew bed. But I can, by the time I get to an end of a bag of coffee, I'm making really freaking good brewed coffee, right? Like better than I'm going to get in most coffee shops.
Right.
And I did not, after spending 2 years with the espresso machine, I didn't think I was ever going to reach. I thought I'd probably plateaued.
Yeah.
Without spending a lot of money on hardware.
That's probably a good general answer to that question, is when the return on time investment does not seem high enough to justify the time.
Yeah. Like the neat thing for me, the hard stuff is always, I think about like trying to learn an instrument as a kid, right? And I think about, so it's one of the things that I really like about what Rocksmith does actually with teaching you how to play guitar is they give you a real sense of progress on almost every step along the way, whether it's like learning a chord or learning how to strum or learning how to palm mute or, whatever technique it is you're learning. They then turn it around into, hey, why don't you try this song? And you can play like the easy version of this song with the thing that you just learned. And because they have this huge library of music attached to that they understand what is being applied at different levels of difficulty and all that in the game, it takes away that, hey, I've been doing the same thing for 6 weeks and I haven't made any progress feeling that was so common when I was like taking piano lessons as a kid or whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just about finding the right course of study or teaching tool or something.
Yeah. I still like learning new stuff. Learning new stuff is always fun. And if people have recommendations on the programming thing, like I have a hard time looking at a book. I know that works for you, but it is not the way I work on that kind of stuff.
It actually doesn't work for me as well as you might think. That might be why I tapped out on those. Like, I mean, I can learn from books, but it's like the thing that always works for me. And this is actually pretty tough to just contrive something in this space, but having a goal in mind before I start, like, every time I have learned the most, it's mostly been Python, but every time I've learned the most of it is when I went like, man, I wish I could automate this thing that I do all the time for work. And like the drive to automate that, like the drive to like, man, if I could save myself 30 minutes a week for the next 3 years, this would be worth it. Like having the goal in mind, then you just start learning the things you need to do to accomplish that goal. And that's kind of the way that I learn in the most motivated way.
The thing for me is I want, like, the advent of code is a really good example because it's this nice package set of almost puzzles, right? Like they're like programming puzzles, and they give you a unique data set. So you have to like parse this huge amount of data and then come up with the answer, which is like a number you type into a field on a website. And they're all personalized. The part that it's missing is they expect you to have a base level of competency. And I wish that I wish I could find something that was like that started with, CS 100 stuff. Like, here's how you place your headers and here's how you run this and here's how you do this stuff. Cause like that's the part that I don't even, it's often the problem. We talked about this a lot on Still Entitled with Adam. Often when you're looking, it's like when you're making something and you know what the thing is, that the part exists, you've seen it, but you don't know that it's called like a left-handed flange.
Right.
So you don't have a way to search for it on the internet. And you can't just say, hey, yeah, I want something that looks like this, but it's the other way. So figuring out what the thing is that you're looking for is actually the hard part, not looking for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. It's a constant problem learning stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. We're running a little long here, so I will spare you this question about NixOS.
We can save it for the Patreon episode.
As much as I'm excited to talk, I would like to talk about NixOS for the handful of NixOS sickos on the Discord.
Shout outs to NixOS.
Some other time. I don't have time to learn it. Speaking of learning things.
Yeah.
I don't have time to learn a whole new programming language to administrate my Linux install. But I would love to.
Look, this is a good example of a thing that the reward is not worth the time invested.
The Nix users on the Discord would maybe disagree. I mean, what if you were effectively programming your operating system, which is to say you were like writing a single program that if your entire boot drive ever got hosed, you could reinstall Nix, apply that configuration, and it would just do everything again. Like it's declarative Linux is what it is. We should not get into this.
Well, that's what like Vagrant and all that stuff does, but for environments. Yes, I get it.
Or like Ansible we're just getting IT stuff here now, or DevOps or whatever. Like it's just like reproducible, easily archived configurations for stuff. But anyway.
Yeah. Like I get the appeal as somebody whose dev environment is a 2-day setup minimum.
I mean, honestly, the thing that really got me thinking about Nix was that VPS. It's like if something ever happened to that VPS, and frankly, you would hope the corporation with a data center has better backup strategies than you have at home. But
fill one hand with hopes and the other.
And I could just learn something like Ansible and apply that to any Linux distro. But
or you could just put everything in Docker containers and then export your Docker files.
Yeah, well, you've always got file sharing and firewall and all kinds of base level stuff to set up. Anyway, all right. maybe we'll get back to that question another time.
Yeah.
Let's end with the unimaginative pseudonym question that we alluded to earlier. Does Will train his child to accept the surveillance state by having an elf on the shelf in his home?
Fuck that up. Oh, sorry. Hold on. You got to put an edit here because we got to say, if you have kids in the car or something, maybe pause the podcast and I'll give you a few seconds to hit the pause button.
Yes. Okay. That's long enough.
Fuck that elf, man. That elf is a fucking narc.
Man, I feel like the worm has turned hard on the elf on the shelf. In like this year or maybe last year, I started seeing a lot of like resentment toward the elf.
No, man. Parents. Okay. So do you know how the elf works?
Like vaguely, like, you move it around. I mean, the elf moves around on its own, like every night. Doesn't it appear somewhere else or something?
Okay. So first off, they marketed it as the elf on the shelf, a Christmas tradition, but it appeared out of nowhere like 10 years ago.
Oh, that sucks.
2005 is when it first came out.
Are they like fooling people into thinking this thing's been around since the 60s or something?
That is precisely what's happening. Is that it's like they manufactured a tradition and sold it with a book and merch.
Oh, that's gross.
And the story is that the elf hides in people's homes to narc on them to Santa Claus when they fuck up. And when it goes to bed, whenever it goes to bed, it goes to the North Pole, narcs to Santa, and then comes back about good and bad stuff, and then comes back in a different place. Okay, so for real, parents with kids in the car, especially if you're in on the elf narking, turn off the radio now.
So is this thing just a behavior control mechanism? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a behavior control mechanism. But that means somebody has to move the doll around. The kids aren't allowed to touch the doll because if you touch it, if somebody moves it, and most people don't know this, but if somebody touches it, the magic gets drained away, and then it's just a crappy elf doll. Ooh. So, like, if you go into somebody's house and you grab their elf on the shelf, and you're like, "Oh, you have an elf on the shelf. That's really cool." You've killed the elf.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's too much responsibility.
Yeah. So, don't touch me. My magic might go, is what it says in the book, and
Yikes.
Santa won't hear all I've seen or I know.
Wait, this thing is a psyop.
It is super fucked up, dude.
Man,
when I not engaged with it at all until we went to elementary school, and until my daughter went to elementary school, and then she was like, "Hey, why don't we have an elf?" And I was like, "What the hell's the elf?" And I looked at it, I was like, "Oh hell no, we're not getting an elf. This is the worst thing I've ever heard."
That's devious. That's That's some full on like De Beers, like Diamond is Forever engagement ring. Like this has been a thing forever, and not just like in the 20s that we ginned up to make people pay 5 times too much for diamonds.
Yep. So okay, so here's the story on Wikipedia. According to this, it was written by Carol Abersold and her daughter Chanda Bell, and that this was based on their family tradition of an elf sent from Santa that watches over the children at Christmas time. And then they used the other daughter's Krista Pitts's expertise in sales and marketing, and spent 3 years promoting their self-published book. And then they released the toy, and now it's in Target, and it's literally marketed as the Elf on the Shelf, a Christmas tradition, which is icky.
That's I don't like that phrasing at all. Is it still big? Like I think I first heard about it like 10, 12 years ago or something, maybe.
My guess. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that you get roped into as parents that like, so it's like Roblox. Like when your kid's like, "Hey, can I play with my friend? They're on Roblox." And you're like, "Sure." Roblox sounds like that's a thing I've heard of before. We should put them on there, not knowing that it's like a toxic hell stew of like the worst monetization and microtransaction box games that like worse even than Korean MMOs in terms of like psychological damage and exploitativeness.
Sure.
It's like that. You like, if you don't do your research before you're like, "Oh yeah, we can get an elf. That sounds fun." Look, don't get the elf. Don't get Roblox. They're both bad. That's the TLDR. Do your homework. Like, this is one of the rules I tell people when they have a new kid. When you would like, don't ever buy a toy for a little kid that makes noise without listening. Like there's a bazillion things you can squeeze a paw on a bear or something and it sings a song. If you don't sit in the store and listen to that song like 8 times in a row before you buy it, you've made a mistake, because when you give a young child a thing that makes noise like that, it's going to make it, they're going to just hammer the button until you go slowly insane.
Mm-hmm.
So like, don't buy toys that make noise for people. That's a crime. Don't bring the elf on the shelf into their house. Don't give them Roblox gift cards. Don't do anything that's going to commit them to this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a whole, the criticism section on the elf on the shelf Wikipedia page is larger than the history of publication or the plot section.
Oh, I've got to read that.
And it starts with the Atlantic columnist Kate Tuttle calls Elf on the Shelf a marketing juggernaut dressed up as a tradition whose purpose is to spy on kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, David Kyle Johnston calls it a dangerous parental crutch.
All right. Well,
anyway, so there you go.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't ruin Christmas for anybody. I'm sorry.
Well, look, maybe you're just setting some children free from the elf's tyranny.
Look, kids, if your parents have this stuff over, you just grab the elf and shake it and the magic will go away.
The elf has no power over you.
Yeah, the elf, you're free of the elf.
Ugh, man. Fraught.
I don't know. I feel like a effigy, an effigy. Is that a thing?
Sure. Yeah.
Are effigies bad? I feel like effigies probably are usually bad, but in this case, I'm going to allow it.
I think the effigy can be used in all manner of ways.
Oh my God. There was a Food Network show too. A real confluence of evil.
Yep. All right. I'm declaring end of questions.
Okay. The questions have been answered. This is the last show of the year, Brad.
It is. It sure is.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy holidays and New Year to everyone. I guess New Year is a holiday, but anyway.
I feel like we're going to do I'm about to do some real Douglas Adams tense work, but I hope you will have had a good Christmas.
It checks out. It's intelligible.
And I hope you'll have a happy New Year. And I hope everybody who's listening to the show has the same and has had the same, whatever you celebrate and wherever you are.
Yeah, same.
As always, Brad and Will Made It Tech Pod is a listener supported show. We're only here because of you. I mean, it's nice to talk to you, Brad. I like talking to you, but like getting paid is nice too. And if you want to find out how you can support the show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. It's $5 a month. You get access to the Patreon exclusive episode where we talk about more of the stuff that we talked about today. I don't think I'm going to talk about Elf on the Shelf again, but maybe, who knows? And you get access to the Fabulous Tech Pod Discord, which is full of beautiful nerds just like you who talk about things like NixOS and Vim.
That's right.
So that Brad has outlets for this behavior that don't include me.
I mean, look, you don't have to ever go into the Linux channel and then you don't have to worry about any of that crap if you don't care about it.
No, but there's also good channels for other stuff too, like keyboards
on there
and headphones and cars and parenting
and food.
And food. The food channel is popping off this time of year. I got to post Nog pictures there actually later today when I think about it. But so it's patreon.com/techpod. It's the end of the month, which means in addition to thanking our executive producer tier patrons, we also thank our associate producer tier patrons. And I'm going to start with the executive producers just because they're at the top of the list. So thanks to Andrew Slosky, Bunny Fiend, Crow, David Allen, James Kamek, Jordan Lippett, Twinkle Twinkie, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. A very special thank you goes out to our associate producer tier patrons, including Alejandro Navarro, Andre M. Burke, PE, Andrew Dicey Scholdice, Arthur Gies, Ben Tallman, Brutal Kerfluffle, Eric Klein, Felix Kramer, Graham Banks, Jad Rita, Just Associate Wedge, Matt Walker, parentheses, Walkman 8080, close parentheses, Mike Etheridge, Nathan Phelps, Sanchit Kumar, Steve Lynn, Thomas Shea, and Tom Hilton. And I think Patreon flipped on the ability for us to do gift subs. So if you have friends or family members who you think would like to be part of the Discord community or would like the patron episodes, you're already listening to them, you can gift them subs now on patreon.com/techpod.
Give the gift of us.
Yeah. More Brad, and everybody needs more Brad and Will in their lives.
True. I can attest.
Yeah. So that'll do it for us this year. We'll be back next year with more Tech Pod.
That's right. 1 week of the year you can save it.
Yeah, I did it right this time. As always, thank you all again for listening, and I hope everybody had a good holiday season, and we will see you next year. Bye, everybody.